This is Mike Roth. Welcome to the Open Forum in the Villages podcast. In this show, we're going to talk to leaders in the community, leaders of clubs, and interesting folks who live here in the villages to give a perspective of what's happening here in the villages and information that I think all villagers should have. We hope to add a new episode every Friday morning at 9 o'clock.
Don, welcome back. Last time we talked about your service on the CCD 10 as the chairperson. Why don't you tell us why you got involved with the community-wide organization?
Project-wide?
Project-wide, yes.
Oh, that's one of those deals where be careful what you ask for. When I moved to CDD 10, it was still under construction.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're at here in Osceola Hills.
Didn't exist.
No, it was still pasture land. Morse Boulevard and Hillsborough Trail did not connect.
Mm-hmm.
Lake Deaton was they didn't connect. Lake Deaton was just being built. Dunedin didn't exist. So because it was in its early stages, all of the supervisors on the board were landowner elected.
Mm-hmm.
Landowner elected means there was only one landowner. It was a developer, so they were, for lack of better terms, developer appointed supervisor.
Well, that happens in all communities.
Yeah.
The construction phase.
Yeah. So the first two seats were coming open. My seat that I'm occupying was one of the first ones. Since I was the first resident to be on the board, they said, "Oh, you're going to be our PWAC representative." And it was like, okay, I guess I am. And I've been on it ever since. That's been really amazing to understand how the different CDDs work together. And then 3 years ago, after the amenities purchase, between 466 and 44, the charter for the Project-Wide Advisory Committee was amended to give us the same responsibilities that the AAC has north of 466 as far as the amenities go. So we actually, in the Project-Wide Advisory Committee, we wear two hats. One is we're working for our CDD
Mm-hmm.
for the common infrastructure, whether it be multimodal paths, cutting the grass, irrigation systems,
Changing out the plants seasonally.
Right. So that's the hat where we work for our individual CDD. The other hat we wear is we're not working for our CDD. It's on the amenities side, and for that we work directly for the residents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's caused some controversy. The last meeting, there was an issue of the walking trail that they're building at Lake Miana.
Mm.
And
that was in the paper. It looked like it was an expensive walking trail.
It is. It is. You have to understand though the geography back there where it's going to be. It's going through some wetlands. It's a pretty swampy area. There was only really two viable choices, either concrete
mm-hmm.
or what's called flex path, which it's kind of a rubber path that drains water really well. And it's lined with ribbon curving, the concrete curving on each side, like we see on our multimodal paths here north of 44. The difference was about $250,000 between the two different surfaces. The budget on it, oh my gosh, we started out with an initial idea of $150,000. 6 months later, it was up around $450,000. We're all a little bit sticker shock. Right? I started calling it the Village's Big Dig.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got the quotes back, of course, we're going through the tail end of COVID, the rising inflation, material shortages, all these things added to the cost. And now it's about $750,000. It's a pretty stiff price tag. So the question becomes, we could do it in concrete for about $500,000, or we could do it with this flex path, which is really ideal for especially people our age. Our joints
mm-hmm.
just don't handle walking on concrete that well.
Right.
So it really came down to an issue of, do we want to spend the other $250,000 to do this right? But yeah, it really came down to a question of, do we want to spend the $250,000 and do it right? Again, on that issue, I listened to the residents, and I had some residents, 4 of them in particular are my fellow board members that were against it. Personally, I think it's a little high, but my opinion doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm elected for. I'm not elected for my opinion. I'm elected to listen to the opinion of the constituents. And overwhelmingly, I heard that people were in favor of this.
In favor of the more expensive material?
In favor of the path, and then it became a question of do we want to do the more expensive material?
Mm-hmm.
And we were pretty much convinced in the meeting that the more expensive trail is the right way to do it. It would last longer. It's going to have lower maintenance costs. The concrete would have to be pressure washed basically once a month, and you're talking 3/4 of a mile of pressure washing. That's a lot. So this other material, the water passes right through it, so it doesn't get slippery.
Doesn't get mossy.
No, it doesn't get mossy. It doesn't get slippery. So it's a much better surface for walking. It'll be interesting to see. It's supposed to start here in the next couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's supposed to be done by the end of summer.
It'll be interesting if a project gets done that fast.
It will be. They have some access issues. They only have one end to access it from over by the Lake Mount Rec Center. So basically they have to start there and just continue to build all the way out to the end. They can't hit it from the side because there's really not any access. That's part of what's driving up the cost too, is the way it has to be built.
In a continuous fashion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Don, as a candidate, and we're going to come back to this again next week, but
Okay.
but as a candidate, what do you see that needs to be done here in Sumter County that hasn't been done?
I think the first thing is communication. Poor communications between the county government and the general population.
Mm-hmm.
The people don't understand how the budget is done. The people don't understand how the county is run in general. The website is.
I attempted to read the budget a couple of years ago, a year ago, when they wanted that 25% tax increase, and they sent me a 28-page document that I couldn't read.
Oh, you got the short version. I read all 400 pages of the budget. I was very in tune with it. And people were outraged because they passed the budget, which goes back to what I'm talking about with communications. The budget process has started. Mm-hmm. It's going on now. It doesn't just happen in September. People finally caught word of the 25% increase for the September meeting, and that's when they have to, by law, pass a budget.
Mm-hmm.
So the work was done. There really was no way to change it at that point. So people were outraged that, they're not listening to us. No, they were listening, but nobody was talking in May and June and July when the budget work was being done. That's when the people need to get involved. And that's one of the big problems we have right now. People aren't involved. They only get involved when it's, all of a sudden the final decision is to be made. And the process doesn't work that way.
Well, if there's no open flow of information of what's actually happening in this process, how can we expect people to know?
Well, the county website, I'm pretty good at the internet and the websites and getting around, and I find it terrible. Mm-hmm. It's atrocious. If you don't know where to look, you'll chase your tail for an hour on that website, get frustrated, and just turn off the computer if you don't throw it out the window.
Mm-hmm. As many people have done here.
I should probably do that too. But getting more information to our residents is probably the first.
How would we do that?
I think first step is revamping the website to make it more user friendly, because it's definitely not. That's small potatoes. The real thing is reaching out to the community, the different organizations, different gatherings that people have, both here in the villages and out in the rest of the county. And getting them to understand what's going on, and at the same time finding out what's important to them. So I think that's the first place we start. There's a lot of perceptions. People have this perception, somebody's in the developer's pocket. Well, there's more than just what you see. Everybody sees one little wedge of the pie. They don't see
it started out with even in the CDDs, where all of the members were developer appointed before they were property members.
Right.
So there's been a gradual progression, and that's something that I was going to ask you about. People who seem to be in the developer's pocket, elected political officials.
Once again, I think
one who's retiring. I understand.
Again, people see only a small portion of the issue. They don't understand the budget issues, the legal aspects of the issues. All they see is what's perceived on social media, which is normally twisted to whoever's hosting that social media's agenda. You, as a commissioner, as a district supervisor, whatever position you're in, you have to look beyond that. You have to go, okay, somebody wants money for this. Okay, do we have it in the budget? That's the next one. Can we do that legally? Is there other funds available for it? You have to take in all of the information and then make a decision. Many people have said, we're buying the developer's roads. That's a fallacy. Okay, the county is putting in the main thoroughfares right now. Megason Road and Marsh Bend Trail are the ones that are getting ready to be widened. Central Parkway. That's an investment. Okay, because they're going to invest, let's say, $20 million in this piece of road. The developer pays for all the rest of the roads feeding into it. Actually, the residents do. It comes as part of your house. Most of it's included in your bond here in the villages. So the only thing the county's paying for is that. But what do they get in return? They get millions in tax revenue every year from the houses that are built that are supported by that main arterial. So, the county is benefiting from it. I mean, if I could find an investment like that, where I could invest money and get the same rate of return that they're getting, I'd stop flying drones. I'd be sitting on my yacht.
That's an interesting question since you brought. What is the rate of return that the county is getting?
I honestly don't know the exact rate of return. It is a significantly positive number. When you're going to invest, let's say, $10 million into a piece of road, but you're going to collect $2 million in property taxes
every year
for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And it's just going to go up. That's a pretty good rate of return. Yes, they have to maintain the roads. But amazingly, they don't pay, your street that you live on, Mike. The county's responsible for the maintenance.
Correct.
They didn't have to pay for it. You paid for it with your bond. Okay. All they have to do is maintain it. And they have to plan for that maintenance. But that's part of what they do with that revenue stream that they generate from your property tax and my property tax. It's got to be managed properly. That's part of, in my opinion, what was the problem with the 25% increase that we had. Buena Vista and Morris needed to be repaved. That was $11 million. That was half of that 25% increase.
We could argue about that point. Didn't really need to be repaved. Portions of them needed repair. Entire repaving from top to bottom, probably, in my opinion, was over the top to make the roads look good, look new, for the developer to sell more houses.
Well, I'm going to disagree, because when you start talking about roads, when you start doing patchwork repairs, the road quality degrades significantly. It is easier and more cost-effective long-term to do the whole road, and then you'll have minor repairs for years to come. Whereas if they just did, okay, we're going to do this half mile here, we're going to do a quarter mile here, and another half mile over there, and you've got mixtures of old and new roads. Now you've got to let contracts again, and it's going to be later. It's going to cost even more. So it is a long-term management thing. Unfortunately, they didn't put enough money away to cover these costs, and that's part of what led to this 25% increase. In my opinion, it was poor management.
So for the 14 years before that,
they were putting feathers in their hat, saying, "Oh, look at us, we're keeping it below the rollback rate." When they should have been saying, we need to plan ahead. Was it a secret that most of the traffic is in the villages is on Morrison, Buena Vista? Was it a secret that roads are going to wear out? No, they should have been planning this long term, and they didn't. And we have.
So is there a long-term plan in the county government?
That I have not seen. I have been looking for it for about 6 months to see what their plan is for long-term road upkeep. Some of the roads, I'll tell you, being on a motorcycle, you become very intimate with the road.
Okay.
With two wheels on the ground. when you start hitting a lot of chuck holes and broken asphalt, you start recognizing
They're problems.
Yeah.
There are problem roads in the county.
Yes.
I've driven on them,
Yeah.
and I know exactly what you mean. I know where some of them are.
Yeah.
But
I have not found a plan that says in 1 year we're going to do these roads, and year 2 we're going to do these roads, and year 3 we're going to do these roads, and by year 5 we'll do these, and by year 10, so a short and long-term plan.
For the most part, these are asphalt roads that have a definitive life of perhaps 15 years if we're lucky. 10 is probably more likely in this weather. It's not the north where you don't get that kind of results out of asphalt.
We also don't get frost heaves either. Frost heaves, where the road breaks up from the freezing.
Right. But the actual construction method for asphalt, I don't know too much about this, is critical in terms of what the base material was when the road was originally constructed. It determines actually how long it's probably going to last.
That and the usage.
The more usage and the heavier weight of the vehicles. There's a difference between a road that takes 2-ton cars and 16 tons or 30-ton trucks.
Right, absolutely.
And the roads have to be built for that kind of traffic, and they may or may not have been. I'm not going to talk about that. Don, I think we've covered enough for today, and we'll come back next week and talk to you about a little bit more about the election for the county commission. Fair?
Great. Outstanding. Look forward to it, Mike.
Thanks, Don. Next week.
Remember, our next episode will air live next Friday at 9 a.m., or should I say pre-recorded, but that's when it'll be released on our regular subscriptions. Bonus subscribers can get early access to episodes. Should you want to become a sponsor of the show, contact me at mikeroth@rothvoice.com. If you know someone that you think should be on the show, send me an email at mike@rothvoice.com. I want to thank everyone for listening to the show. The content of the show is copyright by Roth Voice 2022, all rights reserved.